You know how Christmas has become a competition these days? Everyone trying to outdo each other with bigger trees, flashier lights, and inflatable Santas. Well, there's a group of people who celebrate Christmas in a completely different way. And they've been doing it like this for hundreds of years. How do they manage to capture the true meaning of Christmas while the rest of us are wrestling over the last fancy gifts in Walmart? Ever wondered why some Amish families are just starting their Christmas celebrations when everyone else is taking down their decorations? It turns out there's a fascinating split in how different Amish communities celebrate Christmas, and it all comes down to which calendar they follow. Picture two different Amish communities just a few miles apart. One group is heading to church on December 25th, while the other won't celebrate for another 12 days. These traditional communities, known as the Old Order Amish and some Swartz and Truber Amish, stick firmly to January 6th for their Christmas celebrations. They call this Old Christmas, and they've got some pretty solid reasoning behind it. According to these traditional communities, the rest of the world got it wrong when they switched to the Gregorian calendar. They believe January 6th, which coincides with Epiphany, is the actual date of Christ's birth. There's a bit of friendly rivalry here. They sometimes refer to December 25th as the world's Christmas, which is their polite way of saying, nice try, but we'll stick to the original, thanks. On the flip side, you've got the New Order Amish and some Amish Mennonite communities who've decided to celebrate on December 25th. These more progressive communities figure it makes sense to align with the modern calendar, though don't expect to see them rushing out for last-minute Christmas Eve shopping. They might celebrate on the same day as their English neighbors. That's what they call non-Amish folks. But that's where the similarities end. Whether it's December 25th or January 6th, one thing remains constant. You won't find any traces of Santa Claus in these celebrations. The jolly old elf doesn't make appearances in Amish communities, not even on greeting cards. Instead, they focus entirely on the Christ child, keeping their celebration deeply rooted in religious observance. The actual day of celebration, whichever date it falls on, is remarkably different from what most of us experience. Amish families attend special church services that are even more solemn than their regular Sunday gatherings. These services focus entirely on Christ's birth, with not a single Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer in sight. It's quite a contrast to the festive chaos that many of us associate with Christmas morning. When it comes to work, the Amish approach might raise a few eyebrows in today's world. They do take the day off, but it's strictly for religious observance. There's no extended holiday break here. They're typically back to their regular routines the very next day. It's a far cry from the modern tradition of using up all your vacation days around the holidays. Here's something that might surprise you. Even the most traditional Amish communities technically celebrate two Christmases, just not in the way you might think. Many acknowledge both dates in their own way, even if they only fully celebrate one. It's a bit like having a casual acknowledgement of December 25th while saving the real celebration for January 6th, or vice versa. The beauty of this split in celebration dates is that it perfectly reflects the Amish commitment to their beliefs. The more traditional communities see maintaining the January 6th celebration as part of their dedication to historical accuracy and resistance to modern changes. Meanwhile, the progressive communities view the shift to December 25th as a practical adjustment that doesn't compromise their core values. Whether they're celebrating in December or January, one thing's crystal clear. You won't find any Christmas trees, ornaments, or sparkly decorations in an Amish home. Their focus remains purely on the religious significance of the day, proving that you don't need all the trimmings to celebrate one of the most important days in the Christian calendar. In fact, they might be onto something with their less is more approach. But that's a story for another part of our journey through an Amish Christmas. While most of us are maxing out credit cards and fighting through crowded malls, the Amish approach to Christmas gifts tells a completely different story. Forget about the latest gadgets or designer clothes. Amish gift giving is all about creating something meaningful with your own two hands. It's like that feeling you get when your kid makes you a crayon drawing, except these folks are master craftsmen making gifts that could put most store-bought items to shame. Let's talk about what actually gets wrapped up in an Amish home. Picture the most beautiful handmade quilt you've ever seen, stitched with such care that each pattern tells its own story. Or imagine a rocking chair crafted from solid oak, built to last generations, not like that wobbly furniture we assemble with cryptic instructions and mysteriously extra parts. Amish children might receive wooden toys that their father carved himself or cozy mittens their mother knitted during the long autumn evenings. The practicality of these gifts would make your grandmother proud. You won't find any novelty ties or scented candle gift sets gathering dust in Amish homes. Instead, they give things people actually need: a new set of hand-forged tools for someone starting their own workshop, or a basket of home-canned vegetables from last summer's garden. It's the kind of gift-giving that makes you wonder why we ever thought battery-operated dancing Santas were a good idea. But here's where it gets really interesting. Even within the Amish community, there's a spectrum of what's considered appropriate. The New Order Amish, who tend to be a bit more progressive, might exchange things like homemade preserves, practical clothing items, or even store-bought fabrics for sewing. Meanwhile, the more traditional communities stick to completely handcrafted items, often with a religious bent. Think beautifully bound Bibles or hand-copied prayer books. When it comes to Christmas cards, the Amish put our hastily signed store-bought greetings to shame. Their cards are often handmade masterpieces featuring carefully penned Bible verses or heartfelt prayers. Some families make it a project to create their own cards, turning what could be a chore into a meaningful family activity. And unlike our cards covered in glitter, which, let's be honest, is just crafting glitter that escaped its confines, Amish Christmas cards typically feature simple, elegant designs like stars or angels. The whole gift-giving process in Amish communities is refreshingly free from the stress that plagues most of our holiday shopping. There's no Black Friday stampede, no last-minute Amazon Prime panic ordering, and definitely no gift receipts needed. When you've spent months crafting the perfect gift, you don't need to worry about whether it's the right size or if someone else bought the same thing. Here's something that might make you chuckle. Imagine trying to explain our modern gift-giving habits to an Amish person. Yes, we camp outside stores at midnight to buy things we don't need with money we don't have to impress people we might not even like. They'd probably shake their heads in that gentle way they have, wondering why we make things so complicated. The beauty of Amish gift-giving lies in its simplicity and thoughtfulness. Each present represents hours of work and careful consideration. It's not about how much you spend or trying to outdo last year's gifts. Instead, it's about showing love and appreciation through the work of your hands. A handmade gift might not come with a fancy warranty card, but it carries something far more valuable: the time, skill, and care of the person who made it. Watching an Amish family exchange gifts on Christmas morning would be like stepping into a different world. There's no mountain of torn wrapping paper, no batteries required, and definitely no need to fake enthusiasm over yet another fruitcake. Just simple, beautiful, useful items passed between loved ones with genuine appreciation. Maybe they're onto something with this whole less is more philosophy, though convincing our kids to trade their video game wish lists for handmade wooden toys might take some doing. Forget about spending Christmas glued to your phone texting holiday wishes or video calling relatives halfway across the country. Amish Christmas celebrations are all about real, face-to-face connections that would make your social media status green with envy. These folks take quality time to a whole new level. When Christmas rolls around, whether it's December 25th or January 6th, Amish families don't just hunker down in their own homes. The entire community springs to life like a well-choreographed dance. Extended families gather in numbers that would make your family reunion look like a casual coffee date. We're talking cousins, aunts, uncles, grandparents, and probably some relatives whose exact connection nobody can quite remember, but they're family all the same. The journey to these gatherings is an experience in itself. While most of us are fighting holiday traffic or racing to catch flights, Amish families are traveling by horse and buggy. Picture this: the clip-clop of hooves on country roads, the crisp winter air, and maybe even some snow falling gently around you. It's like stepping into a Christmas card minus the tackiness. Sure, it takes longer than jumping in a car, but that's part of the charm. You can't rush genuine connection. But here's where the Amish really show us what community is all about. Their Christmas celebrations aren't just about gathering with blood relatives. The entire church community comes together in a way that would put most neighborhood block parties to shame. Special church services become reunion points, where families share not just prayers, but also news, support, and probably a good bit of gentle gossip, because let's face it, even the Amish love a good story. What's particularly heartwarming is how they look after those who might otherwise be alone during the holidays. While many of us are busy with our own celebrations, Amish communities make it their mission to ensure no one spends Christmas in solitude. The elderly, the sick, or families going through tough times receive extra attention during the holiday season. It's not just about dropping off a casserole, it's about making sure everyone feels the warmth of community support. The horse and buggy transportation might seem limiting to us modern folks who can zip across states in a matter of hours, but it actually serves a beautiful purpose. Because Amish families can only travel so far, their celebrations tend to be more localized and intimate. There's something special about knowing that your entire Christmas community lives within buggy riding distance. It creates a closeness that no amount of FaceTime calls can replicate. Churches often become the heart of these celebrations, hosting special services that bring everyone together. But unlike our quick Merry Christmas greetings as we rush out of Christmas Eve service, these gatherings are unhurried affairs. Families linger, children play together, and conversations flow as naturally as the coffee being served. The community aspect extends beyond just socializing. Amish families often work together to prepare for the holiday season. While we're fighting crowds at the grocery store, they're organizing barn raisings, quilting bees, or community baking days. These aren't just practical preparations, they're opportunities to strengthen community bonds. Here's a detail that might make you smile. Imagine coordinating all these gatherings without phones or email. No group texts saying running 10 minutes late or last-minute cancellations via Facebook. When Amish families make plans to gather, they stick to them. There's something refreshingly reliable about that, isn't there? Even more remarkable is how these community celebrations continue well after Christmas Day. While most of us are taking down decorations and rushing back to our regular routines, Amish communities maintain their spirit of togetherness throughout the winter months. After all, when your celebration is focused on people rather than presents, there's no reason for the joy to end when the calendar page turns. This deep sense of community during Christmas makes you wonder if we've lost something in our modern rush to do everything bigger, better, and faster. While we're busy posting perfectly filtered photos of our holiday celebrations, the Amish are actually living theirs, one buggy ride and one genuine conversation at a time. If you think picking out your Christmas Day outfit is stressful, you might find the Amish approach to holiday dress quite refreshing. While most of us are frantically searching for the perfect ugly Christmas sweater or debating whether sequins are too much for family dinner, Amish families have a different kind of dress code altogether. One that puts meaning over fashion, but don't think for a second that means they don't care about looking their best. On Christmas Day, whether December or January depending on their community, Amish folks break out their best plain clothes. Now, if you're picturing something dull, think again. These outfits might follow strict guidelines, but there's an art to looking your finest while keeping things modest. Men dust off their best black suits and press their shirts until you could practically see your reflection in them. The suspenders are perfectly adjusted, and their black hats are immaculate. Not a speck of dust to be found. The women's preparation for Christmas services is equally meticulous. Their dresses, often in deep solid colors, are pressed to perfection. Every pleat falls just right, and their crisp white aprons are so spotless they'd make a hospital's laundry department jealous. The prayer coverings, or caps, are starched and shaped with the kind of precision that would impress a geometry teacher. It's like watching a masterclass in the art of looking dignified without showing off. Here's something that might surprise you. While Amish clothing might look simple at first glance, there's actually quite a bit of subtle variation between communities. Some groups allow slightly darker shades of blue or brown for special occasions like Christmas, while others stick strictly to black. It's like their version of dress codes, except instead of black tie optional, it's more like slightly darker blue permitted. And yes, they can tell the difference between acceptable and too fancy blues. It's an art form in itself. The children's Christmas clothes are particularly charming. Little boys in miniature versions of their father's suits looking like tiny businessmen from another century. Girls in dresses that match their mothers, complete with tiny aprons and bonnets. But unlike our kids who might be itching to change into their new Christmas pajamas, these little ones wear their formal clothes with a kind of natural dignity that seems way beyond their years. The preparation of these Christmas outfits starts well in advance. Clothes are aired out, carefully mended if needed, and pressed with the kind of attention to detail that would put professional dry cleaners to shame. Special attention is paid to the small things. Buttons are tightened, hems are checked, and every piece of clothing is inspected with careful eyes. It's not about vanity, it's about showing respect for the occasion through their appearance. What's particularly fascinating is how the Amish manage to make their Christmas best look special while still maintaining their commitment to modesty. There's no glitter, no sparkles, no red and green Christmas theme ties. Instead, the specialness comes from the immaculate care taken with each garment. A freshly pressed shirt, a perfectly tied bonnet, a spotless apron. These become their own kind of decoration. The whole process of dressing for Christmas service has its own rhythm. Families rise early, helping each other get ready. Parents assist children with buttons and ties. Older siblings help younger ones with their shoes. It's like a choreographed dance that's been performed for generations. And unlike our last-minute rushes to find matching socks or iron a shirt, this preparation is calm, orderly, and purposeful. Perhaps the most remarkable thing about Amish Christmas dress is how it manages to be both special and ordinary at the same time. These are essentially the same styles they wear all year round, just the best versions of them. It's a reminder that sometimes the most meaningful things don't need to be flashy or different. They just need to be done with care and intention. And here's a little secret. While they might look serious in their Sunday best, there's often a twinkle in their eyes that suggests they know something we don't. Maybe it's the peace that comes from not having to debate whether light-up reindeer earrings are appropriate for Christmas dinner. You haven't truly experienced comfort food until you sat down at an Amish Christmas dinner table. While most of us are stressing over following recipe videos or trying to decode grandma's cryptic instructions, add flour until it feels right, Amish families are carrying on cooking traditions that have been perfected over generations. And let me tell you, their holiday spread would make any food critic's jaw drop. At the heart of an Amish Christmas feast, you'll find dishes that would make your grandmother's best recipes look like amateur hour. Take their roast chicken, for instance. It's not just any roast chicken. It's a bird that was probably running around the farmyard that morning, seasoned with herbs grown in their own garden, and roasted to a golden perfection that would make those Instagram food photos look pale in comparison. And the mashed potatoes? They're whipped into clouds of buttery heaven, made from potatoes dug from their own fields, with enough richness to make you forget all about those instant potato flakes hiding in your pantry. Then there's the legendary shoe fly pie, a Pennsylvania Dutch masterpiece that could start a family feud if you tried to take the last piece. Picture this, a perfect blend of molasses, brown sugar, and crumb topping that creates something between a cake and a pie. It's the kind of dessert that makes you wonder why we ever bothered inventing anything else. Some families have been using the same recipe for this pie since before electricity was a thing, and honestly, they haven't needed to change a single ingredient. The ham they serve isn't just any store-bought ham with a questionable glaze packet. We're talking about meat that's been cured and smoked using methods passed down through generations. It's served alongside fresh bread that was baked that morning. Bread so good it makes you question every sandwich you've ever eaten. And those carrots and vegetables on the side? They were probably picked from their garden at the peak of ripeness and preserved just for occasions like this. But here's where it gets really interesting. When Amish communities gather for Christmas, the meal becomes a communal masterpiece. Every family brings their specialty dish, creating a feast that puts most restaurant buffets to shame. Mrs. Miller might be famous for her perfectly flaky pie crusts, while the Yoder family's green bean casserole has a secret ingredient that nobody's been able to figure out for 3 generations. And yes, they do keep some family recipes secret. Even in a community built on sharing, some things are sacred. The preparation for these meals starts days in advance. Kitchens become bustling workshops where mothers and daughters work side by side, rolling out dough, chopping vegetables, and sharing techniques that can't be learned from any cookbook. The men and boys might be tasked with butchering the perfect chicken or bringing up preserves from the cellar. It's like a well-oiled machine, except instead of oil, it runs on tradition and butter, lots of butter. You won't find any microwave shortcuts or prepackaged ingredients in an Amish kitchen during Christmas prep. Everything is made from scratch, and when they say scratch, they mean it. The butter was probably churned on site, the flour might have come from their own wheat, and those eggs, collected that morning from hens they know by name. It's farm-to-table dining before that was even a trendy restaurant concept. The actual Christmas meal is an event that would put your average holiday dinner to shame. Families gather around long tables, often saying grace in Pennsylvania Dutch before diving into dishes that have been timed to perfection to all be hot at once, a feat that seems to require some kind of kitchen magic. There's no TV football game playing in the background, no phones buzzing with Christmas selfies, just the sound of conversation, laughter, and the occasional "pass the potatoes, please." And let's not forget about the leftovers, though in Amish households, very little goes to waste. Every scrap of food finds its purpose, whether it's tomorrow's lunch or feeding the farm animals. It's a reminder that good food, like good company, is something to be valued and never taken for granted. Ever wonder what Christmas morning looks like without gaming consoles, smartphones, or the latest must-have toys? Amish children experience a holiday that's worlds apart from their English counterparts, and surprisingly, there isn't a single complaint about missing out on the newest gadgets. In fact, their Christmas celebration might make you rethink what really makes kids happy during the holiday season. For Amish children, Christmas break from school isn't about binge-watching holiday movies or playing video games until their eyes glaze over. Instead, they get a genuine break, typically a week or two, filled with family activities, community gatherings, and yes, even some regular chores, because those cows aren't going to milk themselves, holiday or not. But don't feel sorry for them. These kids are having the kind of authentic childhood experiences that most parents nowadays can only dream about for their children. The excitement of Christmas morning for Amish children isn't centered around a mountain of presents under a decorated tree. Instead, they might find a few carefully chosen gifts, perhaps a handcrafted wooden train from their father, complete with cars that actually roll, or a homemade doll with several hand-sewn dresses from their mother. These aren't just toys, they're family heirlooms in the making, built to last long enough to be passed down to the next generation. No batteries required, no assembly instructions needed, and definitely no some parts missing discoveries a week later. School during the Christmas season takes on its own special character in Amish communities. While other kids are practicing for winter concerts with popular holiday songs, Amish school children might be learning traditional hymns or sharing Christmas stories that focus on the religious meaning of the season. There's something beautifully sincere about a one-room schoolhouse filled with children's voices singing hymns that their great-grandparents probably sang in that same room. The really fascinating part is watching how Amish children naturally take part in the holiday preparations. Unlike many of their modern counterparts who might be glued to screens while adults handle all the holiday work, Amish children are right in the thick of things. They help prepare food for Christmas dinner, assist with making gifts for siblings and cousins, and learn valuable skills in the process. Young girls might be learning to stitch their first quilt squares, while boys might be helping in the wood shop, creating simple but beautiful gifts under their father's guidance. Don't think for a second that these kids are missing out on the joy of Christmas. They just experience it differently. Instead of writing letters to Santa, they might be helping to write Christmas cards to friends and family. Rather than playing with artificial snow in a mall Santa's village, they're actually out in the real snow, taking sleigh rides with their siblings or helping to deliver homemade gifts to neighbors by buggy. The absence of modern entertainment doesn't mean these children are bored. Far from it. Their holiday activities often involve games that have been played for generations, stories told around the family table, and the kind of imaginative play that doesn't need batteries or Wi-Fi. They might spend an afternoon sliding down snow-covered hills on homemade sleds, or gathering with cousins for games that have entertained Amish children for centuries. What's particularly heartwarming is how Amish children learn about giving during the Christmas season. Instead of making wish lists of things they want, they're more focused on what they can make or do for others. You might find a young boy carefully sanding a small wooden box he made for his sister, or a girl putting the final stitches in a pot holder she's making for her mother. These aren't just gifts, they're lessons in the joy of giving, craftsmanship, and thinking of others. During their Christmas break, Amish children also learn the importance of community service. They might join their parents in helping elderly neighbors, visiting sick community members, or participating in other acts of service. It's their version of holiday spirit, focusing not on what they can get, but on what they can give to their community. The result? Amish children experience a Christmas that's rich in meaning, connection, and genuine joy, without a single battery-operated toy in sight. Maybe they're onto something with this whole less is more approach to celebrating the holidays. If you think regular Christmas caroling is special, wait until you hear about how the Amish do it. No backing tracks, no printed lyric sheets, and definitely no light-up Santa hats. Just pure, soul-stirring harmony that would make your local choir hang up their robes in shame. When Amish families go caroling, they create the kind of music that makes you stop whatever you're doing and just listen. The tradition starts with families and church groups bundling up against the winter cold, climbing into their buggies, and heading out into the crisp evening air. But this isn't your typical Jingle Bells and Rudolph affair. Amish carolers sing hymns that have been passed down through generations, many in their traditional Pennsylvania Dutch language. These songs tell the story of Christ's birth with a depth and reverence that makes Deck the Halls sound like a nursery rhyme. What's truly remarkable is how they prepare for these caroling expeditions. While most of us might quickly scan through lyrics before heading out, Amish families take their musical preparation seriously. They practice their hymns throughout the year during church services and family gatherings. Young children grow up learning these songs from the moment they can speak, absorbing the complex harmonies and traditional melodies like they're learning their native language. By the time they're teenagers, many can sing multiple harmony parts without even thinking about it. And here's something that might blow your mind. They do all this without instruments. No guitar, no piano, not even a pitch pipe. The starting note is given by one of the experienced singers, and everyone joins in with perfect harmony. It's like watching a master class in a cappella singing, except instead of performing on a stage, they're standing in the snow outside someone's farmhouse. The actual caroling visits are a sight to behold. Picture this, a group of Amish families arriving by buggy at a neighbor's home, their breath visible in the cold night air. They gather in a semicircle, and without any fanfare or announcement, the first pure notes of a hymn float into the darkness. The harmonies build naturally, voices weaving together in patterns that have remained unchanged for centuries. It's the kind of sound that makes you believe in angels. But these caroling visits serve a deeper purpose than just spreading holiday cheer. They're often directed particularly toward community members who need extra support, the elderly, the sick, or families who have experienced loss during the year. Imagine being alone on a winter evening and hearing these voices appear outside your window, bringing not just music, but the tangible presence of community care and support. The choice of homes to visit isn't random either. The community knows who needs these musical blessings the most. They might travel several miles by buggy just to reach an isolated farmhouse where an elderly widow lives, or make sure to stop at the home of a family who recently lost a loved one. Each stop is a deliberate act of community care, wrapped in the warmth of familiar hymns. What makes this tradition even more special is how it brings together different generations. You'll hear the deep bass of the grandfathers, the clear sopranos of young girls, and even the slightly off-key but enthusiastic contributions of the smallest children. Nobody gets left out, and nobody needs to audition. It's about participation, not perfection, though somehow the overall effect is pretty close to perfect. The songs themselves tell stories that most modern Christmas carols don't touch. They sing about the journey to Bethlehem, the shepherds in their fields, and the profound mystery of Christ's birth, but with a depth and theological richness that reflects centuries of faith and tradition. These aren't just holiday songs, they're musical sermons, passed down through generations. As the evening progresses, the carolers move from house to house, their voices carrying across snow-covered fields in the still winter air. No microphones, no amplification. Just pure human voices joined in harmony, creating the kind of Christmas music that would make even the most jaded person stop and listen. In a world of artificial everything, there's something profoundly moving about this natural human expression of joy and faith. Christmas church services in an Amish community make your typical holiday service look like a quick coffee break. While most churches might add a few extra carols and light some special candles, Amish Christmas services are on a whole different level of devotion. Imagine the most solemn, meaningful church service you've ever attended, then multiply that by about 10. That's getting close to what happens in an Amish church on Christmas morning. The day starts before dawn, with families rising in the pitch black to prepare. There's no last-minute rushing or throwing on whatever's clean. This is serious business. The church service itself might last 3 hours or more, and nobody's checking their watch. Mainly because they don't wear watches, but you get the point. It's the kind of dedication that would make most modern churchgoers' jaws drop, especially considering there aren't even any comfy padded pews to sit on. Inside the church, which might be someone's converted barn or a dedicated meeting house, the atmosphere is electric with quiet anticipation. Unlike regular Sunday services, which are already pretty intense by most standards, Christmas services take on an extra layer of solemnity. The hymns are longer, the Bible readings more extensive, and the sermons, well, let's just say you better have eaten a good breakfast because you're going to be there for a while. The singing during these services is something else entirely. Remember those harmony-perfect carols from their visiting performances. Now imagine that in a room full of people who've been singing these hymns since they could talk. The sound is pure and powerful, rising up to the rafters without any musical accompaniment. No organ, no piano, just human voices joined in centuries-old songs that tell the Christmas story in ways that would make your standard Silent Night sound like a commercial jingle. What's particularly fascinating is how the children handle these marathon services. While most kids might be bouncing off the walls thinking about presents, Amish children sit quietly, participating in the service with a maturity that seems almost unnatural to outsiders. Sure, the little ones might get fidgety. They're still kids after all. But there's an understanding that this is important. Sacred time. The ministers deliver sermons that dive deep into the Christmas story, but not in the way you might expect. They'll spend time examining details that most people gloss over. The significance of the manger, the symbolic meaning of the shepherd's presence, the theological implications of God becoming human. It's like a master class in biblical interpretation, delivered in Pennsylvania Dutch, with everyone hanging on every word. And here's something you might not expect. The seating arrangement itself tells a story. Men and boys sit on one side, women and girls on the other. The oldest and most respected members of the community sit in the front rows, with families arranged behind them in a pattern that reflects the community structure. It's like a living map of the social fabric, all coming together to worship. The dress code for Christmas services takes their usually strict standards up another notch. While Amish clothing is always modest and plain, Christmas church clothes are the best of the best. Men's suits are perfectly pressed, women's dresses immaculate, and everyone's shoes are polished to a shine that would make a military inspector proud. It's their way of showing respect for the occasion without falling into the trap of vanity. What makes these services truly special isn't just their length or solemnity. It's how they serve as a reminder of what Christmas is really about for the Amish community. There's no rushing through the service to get to the presents, no checking phones for Christmas messages, obviously, and definitely no discussion of holiday sales or shopping. It's purely focused on the religious significance of the day, creating a space where the modern world's distractions can't intrude. As families file out after the service, there's a sense of having participated in something profound. They're not just checking off a religious obligation, they've spent their Christmas morning exactly as they believe it should be spent, in worship, in community, and in quiet reflection on the true meaning of the day. Just when most of us are taking down decorations and feeling that post-holiday slump, Amish communities are still going strong with their celebrations. For them, December 26th or January 7th for Old Order communities isn't a signal to rush back to normal life or hit the stores for returns. Instead, they're just getting started with what might be the most meaningful part of their Christmas season, the extended period of celebration known as the 12 Days of Christmas. Remember how the Amish don't go crazy with pre-Christmas festivities? Well, this is when their wisdom really shines through. While the rest of us are nursing holiday hangovers and buyer's remorse, they're spreading their celebration out in a way that makes perfect sense. It's like they figured out that good things shouldn't be rushed. Imagine that. The post-Christmas period in Amish communities is filled with a steady stream of family gatherings, community events, and continued charitable works. Picture this. Instead of everyone being too exhausted from holiday preparations to enjoy actual holiday time, these folks are fresh and ready to focus on what matters, spending time with loved ones and helping others. It's like they've discovered the secret to avoiding that dreaded post-Christmas crash that leaves most of us feeling empty and broke. Their approach to extending the Christmas spirit is particularly clever. Rather than cramming all their visiting and celebrations into 1 or 2 days, they spread it out over several weeks. Families take turns hosting gatherings, sharing meals, and continuing the practice of giving well into the new year. But here's the kicker. These aren't lavish parties with expensive food and decorations. They're simple, meaningful get-togethers where the focus is on the people present, not the presents. The charitable aspect of their post-Christmas season is especially noteworthy. While many of us are making New Year's resolutions will probably break by February, Amish communities are actively helping their neighbors through the harsh winter months. They're checking on elderly community members, bringing food to families in need, and making sure no one's woodpile runs low during the cold spell. It's practical Christianity in action, without any need for social media posts about their good deeds. One of the most beautiful aspects of this extended celebration is how it naturally transitions into the new year. There's no abrupt shift from holiday mode to regular life. Instead, the spirit of giving, community support, and gratitude gradually merges with their daily routines. Work resumes, but the warmth of the Christmas season lingers in continued acts of kindness and community support. You might be wondering about all those Christmas gifts they received. Unlike many of us who might be rushing to return or exchange items, Amish families are putting their practical gifts to good use. That new quilt is keeping someone warm during winter nights, the handmade tools are being used in daily work, and the preserved foods are helping to stock winter pantries. Everything has its purpose, and nothing goes to waste. The young people in the community play a special role during this time too. Instead of being glued to new electronic gadgets, they're involved in organizing singing gatherings, helping with winter chores, and learning valuable life skills from their elders. It's like an extended period of apprenticeship in the art of community living, disguised as holiday celebrations. Even their work schedule during this period reflects their balanced approach. While they don't take extended holidays like many of us do, they maintain a rhythm of work and celebration that keeps both their farms running and their community bonds strong. There's something remarkably sane about this approach. No post-holiday burnout, no January blues, just a steady pace of life enriched by continued celebration. Perhaps the most striking thing about the Amish post-Christmas period is how it demonstrates their understanding that true joy isn't found in a single day of excessive celebration, but in extending the spirit of giving and community throughout the winter season. While the rest of us might be packing away our holiday spirit along with our decorations, they're showing us that maybe, just maybe, we've been doing this whole Christmas thing backwards. Take a moment and think about your last Christmas. How much of it do you actually remember? Between the frantic shopping, the endless social media posts, and the sugar-fueled chaos, most of us emerge from the holiday season feeling more exhausted than enlightened. But after exploring how the Amish celebrate Christmas, we might all need to admit they've got a few things figured out that we've somehow forgotten along the way. First off, let's talk about what's probably sitting in your garage right now. Boxes of tangled Christmas lights, artificial trees, and enough decorations to fill a small store. Meanwhile, the Amish are over here celebrating one of the biggest holidays of the year without a single strand of tinsel. And guess what? Their children aren't writing letters to therapists about their tinsel-deprived childhoods. Instead, they're growing up understanding that joy doesn't come in a box of decorations or through a string of LED lights. The Amish approach to gift-giving is another eye-opener. While we're maxing out credit cards, buying things people probably don't need, they're creating gifts that actually mean something. Imagine getting a present that someone spent months making, instead of something they panic bought on Christmas Eve. There's a certain beauty in receiving a hand-carved wooden toy that will last generations. Rather than a plastic gadget that'll be forgotten by New Year's, their sense of community during the holiday season is something we could definitely learn from. These days, most of us consider it a Christmas miracle if we manage to get the whole family together for one meal without anyone checking their phone. Meanwhile, Amish communities are spending weeks visiting each other, sharing meals, and actually, wait for it, talking to one another, face to face, without screens. Revolutionary, right? The way they handle Christmas with children is particularly enlightening. While many of us are trying to outdo last year's presents or compete with what other kids are getting, Amish children are learning the joy of making gifts for others and understanding that happiness doesn't have a price tag. They're not suffering from the absence of video games or the latest toys. They're thriving in an environment where imagination and creativity take center stage. Let's not forget about their approach to food. No midnight runs to the grocery store for forgotten ingredients, no stress about following complicated recipes from YouTube. Their Christmas meals are a celebration of simple, homemade goodness that brings people together. There's something profound about sharing food that comes from your own land, prepared by hands that know every step of the process from seed to table. Their post-Christmas celebration period might be the most brilliant part of all. Instead of crashing into January with holiday debt and seasonal depression, they maintain a steady flow of community connection and meaningful celebration. It's like they've discovered that spreading joy over time makes it last longer. Who knew? Even their dress code carries a lesson. While we're stressing about finding the perfect outfit for every holiday event, they're showing us that looking your best doesn't mean following the latest trends or spending a fortune. There's dignity in simplicity. And maybe we don't need 12 different Christmas sweaters after all. Here's the real kicker. The Amish aren't doing any of this to be trendy or environmentally conscious or to rack up social media likes. They're just living according to their beliefs, and in doing so, they're accidentally proving that less really can be more. They're showing us that you don't need expensive decorations, elaborate entertainment systems, or mountains of presents to create meaningful holiday memories. So maybe this year, instead of getting caught up in the commercial chaos of the season, we could take a page from the Amish playbook. No, you don't have to sell your car and buy a horse and buggy, but perhaps we could all benefit from slowing down, focusing on what matters, and remembering that the best gifts often can't be bought in stores. After all, isn't that what we're all really looking for during the holiday season? Not more stuff, but more meaning. Not more events, but more connection. Not more presents, but more presence. The Amish might be living in a way that seems old-fashioned to many, but when it comes to celebrating Christmas, they might just be light years ahead of the rest of us.